are not an everyday occurrence here. Oh, the peccary doesn't seem to mind, but the little girl, well, she's a little concerned. About 20 years ago, the village decided to offer visitors an opportunity to come and stay overnight and experience the life of their village. And we are, sharing dinner with Faustino and Christina Sakul and their family. While Christina serves us our meal of chicken and soup and tortillas, we meet their pets. Besides a dog and cat, they have tamed this baby wild pig, and he has free roam. Faustino is open and he talks about their lives, but the peccary turns out to be the real star of the evening. I can't help the pun, he really is a ham. Curious about the camera.
Whenever you go out to other districts like
He even poses.
or other districts, mostly Spanish.
Faustino depends on a small plot of corn to supply their main diet. And while he speaks English and Maya, he says more Spanish is now being spoken in Belize.
Around here in Toledo.
After a while, though, our little friend is becoming a very tired ham.
When you rub on her neck and on her belly.
With a few more strokes, he's ready for bed. And so are we. In the morning, the sounds of the jungle awake us, along with chickens. And they taste much better than our chickens. The parrots are also awake. And Christina, like all the village children, is taking care of her younger sibling. Later, her mother, Justina, takes us on a tour through the village. She tells us they do have a school here. The children attend to the 8th grade, but after that they have to pay for their education. And she shows us some of the native herbs, like wild cilantro, that they use for soups and other dishes.
Yes, we put this in a soup.
They still have no individual running water, and they just received electricity. But it's allowed Justina to have a corn grinder that the villagers can use. It's much easier and faster than grinding by hand, and it gives a much more uniform texture. The importance of tortilla to all the Maya groups is really hard to describe. As our lunch is prepared, we have to find out how the dough is actually made. The corn has to be mixed first with ground limestone, and it's boiled to soften the tough corn shell. And then the limestone is drained away. They use no salt or other seasonings. Tortillas are eaten with every single meal. They have been for centuries. It is not only their tradition, their survival. Now, this may not be your standard resort, but for those of us who have never had a chance like this to share meals, environment, and friendship, when it's all over, we have a sense perhaps the rewards of our visit have become more ours than theirs. Also in the Toledo district is the Coxcomb Jaguar Reserve. It's part of the 120,000-acre Mountain Pine Ridge National Reserve. At the entrance, another Maya village, the Maya Village Center. But we have to drive a distance inside. Finally meet up with Ernesto to hike through this pristine place. And almost immediately, this world starts to show us its life. Now it's very peaceful, but 100 years ago, during the British mahogany logging days, it was a hive of activity. In fact, Ernesto tells us this river was once jammed by all of the thousands of logs cut down.
The development of the logging industry.
Further on, we also spot some of the myriad types of swallowtail butterflies that are here. While this is the world's largest jaguar preserve, They only come out at night. A blue morpho's out, though, a rather rare butterfly even here, along with a small cloud of cabbage butterflies that gather at puddles. Also on the ground, army ants are on the move. And when they're moving, an interesting thing happens. A whole host of other little creatures will follow them, watching very carefully to pick up whatever the ants flush out of the underbrush. And everything gets out of the ants' way, even the scorpions. See, the bird is keeping a close eye, and a lizard is also on the watch. We find a nice large grasshopper, who it seems would rather be with us than the ants. Ernesto's been associated with this preserve for years. He's been an ardent bird watcher, and he knows many of the hundreds of species that are here, from the rare to the common woodpecker. And finches. Howler monkeys are also residents. And as usual, they make their presence known. But one animal hard to hear is the tapir, a cow-like creature that moves slowly through the brush. It's the national animal, but rarely seen. This coxcomb preserve is vitally important to Belize. They hope to secure its future as well as its past. Back at the village center, Ernesto and his entire family prepare a special celebration to show us an important part of their past. They've even asked their friends to join them. This village is Mopan Maya. It's a different group than at Laguna Village. And they have their own unique traditions. Ernesto's wife, Aurora, is a shaman, a Maya healer. Now, they hold this celebration regularly to offer thanks for the blessings that they receive. This is not for tourists, and they're very pleased we want to learn about their beliefs.
Like different elements of items that we use to give a little thank you here. Now this is a little thank you type of ceremony where you put all the products that you grow, and then you have porridge that we made out of corn, and these are the elements of who we are. We given thanks to the Supreme God that we know is there. So we eat together, we celebrate, and we dance.
Sustaining the past and keeping tradition is foremost. They work at it because they believe it benefits not just them, but you and I and everyone. Guatemala City, the fourth capital, is the largest and most modern city in all Central America. They built it in a valley to protect it from the earthquakes that destroyed the first three. The city's divided into zones, and the heart of the old city, Park Central. It's a very popular place, especially on weekends. Their tradition of socializing is still alive and well. People, as well as pigeons, flock in. Along the park, there's constant coming out of and going into the Metropolitan Cathedral. It houses many art treasures and statues that date back to colonial times. The majority of Guatemalans are Catholic, and many come to sit even when Mass is not being held, perhaps just to contemplate the historic icons like Our Lady of Mercy statue, brought by the Spaniards 400 years ago, and this dramatic crucifix behind the altar. Many visitors also get a warm greeting and blessing from the priest. He seems to try and connect with everyone. Across the park, the National Palace of Culture is the home of the Guatemalan government. It's a strikingly elegant building. Inside, the murals show the conquest of Guatemala, and the beautiful setting houses some of the best works of Guatemalan artists. The end of Guatemala's terrible 35-year-old civil war 10 years ago has brought many positive changes in this country. There's still problems, but there seems to be a new casualness here. The music from this local group may not cause a terrific response from the adults, but it sure is inspirational to some of the little ones. But the biggest attraction in the park by far is the fabric market. Row after row of bolts of finely woven material in every color and pattern imaginable. All traditional women make their skirts from this material, and some of the merchants even demonstrate how beautiful it is. The market doesn't stop at the park. It continues on both sides of one of the main streets for almost 2 miles. Everything imaginable covers the sidewalks, and it's jammed with small vendors. Of the over 2 million who live in the city, it seems half of them are here. And in the newer sections, they've created more sleek, trendy plazas that celebrate its history, along with some lovely parks that draw young families to just come and enjoy the outdoors. The newer sections also have beautiful wide boulevards. One leads to Reformer's Tower. It's the world's only scale replica of the Eiffel Tower. It's a political statement. It marks the liberals' triumph over the conservatives in the 1800s. Ureta Church is still the private church of the Ureta family. The blend of Spanish colonial as well as Maya past seems to function amazingly well amid all the glass in this bursting metropolis. Just a few miles east of the city is extensive farm country. On our way to Kitagua and Rio Dulce, we detour off the paved highway to get a little insight to the life not so visible. Like the extensive fruit and nut orchards and banana plantations. They've been here since the early 1900s, and it's one of the country's largest exports, along with sugar and coffee. Further east, it's the land of the cowboy and their friends. A huge area in eastern Guatemala is devoted to cattle raising, and despite the mountainous terrain and forest, they're constantly herded to find more grazing areas. The cows may get tired, but the cowboys are friendly. They keep her moving. In a little forested valley sits the Maya city of Kitagua. It lasted over 600 years, and during its final 200, it became the capital of a very prestigious and free state. Scientists know that because of the 9 stelae and the 4 altars they've discovered in the plaza. They tell how Kitagua was ruled by the city of Copan in nearby Honduras for centuries, and how it revolted and became free with the capture and execution of Copan's king. Kitagua's victorious ruler, Kayak Sky, had this story all carved in these stones over his 38-year reign. Even though its temple at the end of the plaza may be small, it's important. because one of its 3 chambers bears the last carved date of 810 AD. After that, the city's history stopped and it was abandoned for unknown reasons, and most of it still lies underground. Also in the plaza, the 4 zoomorphic altars. They represent gods, animal spirits, and some of the Maya's cosmic view. Each has a commemorative date, and calendars that show the Maya date of creation as August 13, 3114 BC by our calendar. These carvings have been an essential source of study for archaeologists. Deciphering the glyphs, the detailed story of the 600-year history of Chichicastenango has now been brought to life. The structures also provide good hiding and hunting places for other creatures, like this green iguana. He's not interested in history, just his stomach. And an unwitting butterfly just happens to come by. But these exceptional stone journals are an incredible gift of history that stands here to ponder. Further east is the 6-mile gorge of the Rio Dulce, with its aquatic community. Exquisite beauty and colossal grandeur, even in the rain. The Rio Dulce, or Sweet River, begins at the Caribbean and it flows 18 miles to empty into Lake Isabel, the largest lake in Guatemala. In its 18 miles, the river wears many faces. Past homesteads and shallows where jacanas, several varieties, walk on the water lily pads. Just some of the 600 species of birds that live here. The people move only by water. There are no roads along this river, and only one across its entire 18-mile span. Plenty of lagoons, though, where snook, freshwater perch, river bass, catfish, tarpon, even manatees pass. And overhead, more birds, as well as the acrobats we've learned to love. The sounds of howler monkeys and spider monkeys. But we're headed toward a unique ecotourism project going on at the water's edge, an isolated Maya rainforest village. Edgar welcomes us to his home. The village has developed a plan that both benefits them and conserves the rainforest. They have a visitor center, and the income from the sale of rainforest products helps the village, and in return, they avoid any agriculture to help protect the biodiversity the rainforest has. Edgar takes us on a tour, and he shows what the rainforest provides to help him keep the tradition alive. From these natural products, they can create items for the gift shop and also eat. Look how hard this nut is. And because it's so hard, they can carve the outside into tiny figurines they can sell. The inside is sweet. It tastes like coconut. They can use it for cooking.
Similar al coco.
Oh, sí.
Sí, y esa es manzana.
They also gather medicinal plants for ailments. Have a head or a backache? All you have to do is apply this leaf. It contains an excellent painkiller.
Pongamos una tela, lo amarra aquí. Aquí. Ah, sí. Una noche.
They built a guest house so people can stay and hike the rainforest with a guide. And on the path, we can see all kinds of biodiversity.
Pongamos una capa, si no hay capa.
The villagers utilize almost everything in some way, just to cool down sometimes.
Calor. Sí.
And Edgar learns English while we learn about cures for stomach aches and seasonings for soups. Since there's no farming, even the corn for tortilla making has to be brought by boat. This educational center holds classes on weekends for these young ladies to become proficient in the skill of tortilla making. The girls, too, travel by boat from their homes, spend several hours here learning from the older women. And during the week, they actually have classes for other children. This project was started a few years ago with help from a Canadian agency, and the concept so far has benefited both the environment and these tradition keepers. After saying goodbye to Edgar, as for the future of the project, I think the words on the boat describe it best. "27 miles west of Guatemala City was once the capital, the first planned city, and the political, economic, and religious center of all Central America. Today, it's simply known as Antigua. But for 200 years, it rivaled everything between Mexico City and Lima, and in some ways, it still does. At the entrance is Pedro de Betancourt. He founded the religious order that serves the poor. Also, the cobblestones the Spanish used, as well as magnificent churches, cathedrals, many in ruins. The legacy of the earthquakes in the 1770s. But for 200 years, Antigua was a Spanish colonialist dream. Once walking underneath blossoms, over 60,000 residents, including famous scholars and writers, artists. And today's streets and shops give hints of life as it was, offering traditional Antiguan sweets, decorative ironwork that still covers the town, as well as artifacts and mementos of its past. Like paintings of the Arch of Santa Catalina. Even now, a popular icon to paint. It once sheltered the young ladies as they crossed the street to the gardens from their convents. Antigua had over 18 convents and monasteries, and some the most beautiful in the world. And from the buildings that surround it, we can see the central park the colonialists created. You know, it was once used as a secret meeting place for the young nobles and ladies. Today, it's a favorite spot for everyone, from early in the morning till late at night. And when the Fountain of the Sirens was built in the 1700s, for years it was considered scandalous. Now it's recognized as a masterpiece, as well as a source of unexpected fun for some of the little ones. We can take a carriage ride. It goes past many of the sacred buildings, each with its own elegance and history. The cathedral downtown, La Merced Church with its lemon yellow and white facade, and one that has special meaning for Guatemalans. It's the resting place of the only Central American saint, Pedro de Betancourt, a shepherd who came to Antigua from the Canary Islands in the 1650s. And when he died of pneumonia at 41, he was called the St. Francis of the Americas. And in 2003, Pope John Paul II proclaimed him a saint. He never became a priest, but as a lay member of the church, spent his life helping the poor and the sick here. The walls of the church show notes of gratitude to Pedro for his service and love to the unfortunates. Outside, the courtyard shows scars from the earthquakes and the mudslides that changed its history. The morning of July 29, 1773. As its 60,000 people felt the ground rumble and shake. The enormous buildings cracked, split, and fell. Monumental, glorious history, almost all destroyed, while horrific volcanic mudslides enveloped the remains. And even so, the people loved this city so much, most had to be forced to leave. Today, its people still share that love of charm and character, as does almost every visitor. While the surrounding mountains, they say, sleep now, overlooking the echoes of the power and glory this city once had. North and west, the highlands, Lake Atitlan, and the villages of Chichicastenango and Santiago. And here is where the history and the traditions of the Maya are kept very much alive, and where most of the Maya still live. From dawn till dusk, still without the use of animals, crops are grown and gathered the same way they have been for generations. No mechanized machinery to make it easier. Farming not only corn, but vegetables, all kinds, and beans. They seem almost bonded by the land. And when the rain comes, it may temporarily slow a few down, and while some families seem reticent, many may actually quit for a while. But further up in the hills, others endure it as just another inevitable pause in the day's routine. On top one hill is the sacred shrine to the Maya earth god they call Pascual Abak. Here, shamans have performed rituals of sacrifice and asked for his blessings for over 1,000 years. The hill and shrine overlook the Kichki Maya village of Chichicastenango. And for more than 400 years, Chichi's been a mecca for thousands who live all around the highlands because of its market. It begins while the chill of the night is still in the air. It's an incredible flurry of activity. It's like watching a well-choreographed dance, and only a privileged few are not dancing. But it's much more than a place to buy and sell. It's the central social event of their lives. And in a few hours, it's in full swing. Enormous arrays of everything you can imagine.
Excuse me.
Besides the market, though, Chichi offers something much more to the Highland Maya on the steps of the Church of St. Thomas, where they practice both Christianity and their ancient religion. Pilgrims come to these steps, burn incense, and pray to their Maya gods, and each of the 18 steps represents a month of the Maya calendar, because the Spanish built this church over an ancient Maya temple 400 years ago. Inside was found Guatemala's greatest literary work, the Popol Vuh, a book written right after the Spanish conquest. It's helped to explain some of the beliefs and values these Maya maintain. Like about masks. Masks are very important. And down one street is a mask maker shop I visited 20 years ago. Today they are still at work. Miguel and his mother greet me with shy hospitality.
Buenos días.
Buenos
Buenos días.
Buenos dias. And you're working. These are the costumes.
Los
They're supreme craftsmen, and the wooden masks on the walls are for tourists. But others are made for entirely different reasons.
Nice.
In Bat, Mother Elsie and Miguel show us the masks they create to be used in traditional ceremonies at festivals. The Maya believe masks can and do impart the powerful characteristics of the figures they represent. And in his workshop, the elder Thomas creates the special masks and costumes for the traditional dances.
Los trajes.
The costumes. He and Miguel show us the masks of historical figures from Guatemala's past, worn on St. Thomas Day.
Y la más que Tecún Humán, el héroe nacional.
Sí.
Es el brujo.
Es otro.
Brujo.
Brujo.
Achitz, Maya Quiche.
Maya.
Achitz. En inglés es witch doctor.
Along with the costumes they wear when the men perform the dance of the conquest.
They're gorgeous. And